Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari and Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotartha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotartha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Now we are on verse 71. That's why we don't have words on the board. If you have any devices, call them up now. Nashta prayasha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 8th day of July, 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. Text number 71. Yoga Deshamapasadya Dariyanto Munivrata Samahita Dihak Sarva etadam yasatadvitaha yogadesham upasadhya dharayanto munivritaha samahitadiyak 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 sarva etadam yasatadvitaha. Go ahead, Dhamma. Yogadesham upasadhya dharayanto munivritaha samahitadiyak sarva etadam yasatadvitaha yogadesham upasadhya dharayanto munivritaha samahitadiyak sarva etadam yasatadvitaha. Alex. Yogadesham upasadhya dharayanto munivritaha samahitadiyak sarva etadam yasatadvitaha. Yoga adesham. This instruction of bhakti yoga. Upasadhya. Constantly reading. Dharayantaha. And taking within the heart. Munivritaha. Just take the vow of the great sages. The vow of silence. Samahita. Always fixed in mind. Diyaha. With intelligence. Sarve. All of you. Etat. This. Yasata. Practice. Advitaha. With great reverence. Lord Shiva speaking to the princes, the Prachetas. My dear princes, in the form of a prayer I have delineated the yoga system of chanting the holy name. All of you should take this important stotra within your minds and promise to keep it in order to become great sages. By acting silently like a great sage and by giving attention and reverence, you should practice this method. Purport. In the Hatha Yoga system, one has to practice bodily exercises, dhyana, dharana, asana, meditation, etc. One also has to sit in one place in a particular posture and concentrate his gaze on the tip of the nose. Tip of the nose is where the nose begins, right? Nasagra, right here, between the eyebrows. That's the tip of the nose in Prabhupada's lexicon. There are so many rules and regulations for the Hatha Yoga system that it is practically impossible to perform it in this age. The alternative system of Bhakti Yoga is very easy, not only in this age, but in others as well. For this yoga system was advocated long ago by Lord Shiva when he advised the princes, these sons of Maharaj Prachina Barhishat. The Bhakti Yoga system is not newly introduced, for even 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna recommended this Bhakti Yoga as the topmost yoga. As Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita 647. All together. Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavam bhatati yo mam same yuktatamo mataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. The topmost yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself and chants the glories of the Lord. In other words, this system of bhakti yoga has been existing from time immemorial and is now continuing in this Krishna consciousness movement. The word munivrataha is significant in this regard because those who are interested in advancing in spiritual life must be silent. Silence means talking only of Krishna Katha. This is the silence of Maharaj Ambarish. Savai Manak, we can chant together. Savai Manak Krishna Padara Vindayo Vachangsi Vaikunda Gunano Varnane. King Ambarish always fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord and talked of him only. Bhagavatam 9:4-19. We should also take this opportunity in life to become as good as a great saint, simply by not talking unnecessarily with unwanted persons. We should either talk of Krishna or chant Hare Krishna undeviatingly. This is called Munivrata. The intelligence must be very sharp, samahita diyaha, and should always be acting in Krishna consciousness. The words etadabhyasatadvitaha indicate that if one takes these instructions from a spiritual master with great reverence, advita, and practices them accordingly, he will find this bhakti yoga process to be very, very easy. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana salakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, the princes are about to begin their jagya of chanting this prayer, this song of Shiva, for, well, how long? 10,000 years? It says, standing in the water. Does it say standing on the water? I have to research that. I haven't found it. Of course, that's the way they're painted, so that must be the reality. But and then it says, stay silent, which indicates they're chanting in their mind, but anyway, I won't go there. Okay, so the main thing is that Prabhupada equates this song with chanting the holy name. So in fact, he puts it right in the translation there. That this chanting again and again, prayer, this particular prayer, I think it's about 30 verses long. The whole idea is to capture the mind, to fix the mind on Krishna through sound. That's the basic practice that we have. Begins with Shravanam Kirtana Vishnu Smaranam. And that leads to chanting. You hear, you chant, you hear and chant. I chant, you hear, you chant, I hear. And if we keep doing it long enough, we'll be absorbed. The mind will be absorbed in Krishna. It's interesting. I always found this fascinating that after the chapter, Prabhupada quotes this verse, Yoginam api sarvesham, it's the final verse in the 6th chapter. The 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is all about meditation, dhyana yoga. And as you know, if you read it, that Krishna gives a nice little summary of the process, where to sit, what to sit on, and how to practice the breathing, controlling the mind, don't eat too much, don't eat too little. And even mentions pranayama. So the whole idea there is to capture this mind, which at present moment is our worst enemy, right? The uncontrolled mind is the enemy of the soul. You're living with your own worst enemy. But we can train the mind by these practices, pacify the mind and then fix it by the intelligence on Krishna. Either the form, meditating on the form in the heart, which is what the yogis try to do, or which is much more easy and is the Yuga Dharma, on the name of Krishna. That this age of Kali is an ocean of faults. Who can deny it? The ocean keeps rising. Waves are hitting us at all times. But there's one special quality, that just by chanting Kirtanadeva Krishnasya, Krishna's name, Mukta Sangha Param Bhajait, one becomes detached from his entanglement in matter and goes to the supreme abode, Param Bhajait. So that verse is obviously foundational for this Sankirtan movement. Lord Chaitanya came to preach Bhagavatam, srimadbhagavatam pramanam. It's described that there's this nice verse, Aradho Bhagavan Vajeshatana Yastadhama Vrindavanam summarizing Lord Chaitanya's teachings. One should worship Bhagavan. Who is that Bhagavan? The son of Nanda. We're in Vrindavan. How? And also worship Vrindavan. And the method is the method that the gopis showed. Means Ramya Kacharupasana Vrajavadhuva Geniya Kalpita. Completely absorbing the mind and the heart in Krishna and serving him completely selflessly out of love. So how do you know all this? There has to be some evidence. srimadbhagavatam pramanamamalam. And then what's the goal of the whole thing? Prema pamarta mahan. Pure love for Krishna. That's a summary of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. One summary. So, and clearly in his own teachings, this Shikshastika, the holy name, is the central process of meditation, worship, and so forth. So this same result will be attained by anyone who takes that process in this age, as the Prachetas achieved. And what did they finally achieve? Direct darshan of Vishnu. He appeared to them either underwater or whatever after they had chanted, and they became completely purified. So Prabhupada contrasts the Hatha Yoga system with the Bhakti Yoga system. The Hatha Yoga system is the Dhyana Yoga, all those processes, but it's very artificial. What did Arjuna say? The mind is as hard to control as the wind. What is that verse? Thank you. This is from living in Miami. You get to think of this verse. You really experience the uncontrollable wind. So Arjuna said, after all the instruction, Chanchalam himana Krishna, my mind is too flickering and very powerful and obstinate. Pramati balavad dridham. Tasyaham nigraham manye. My opinion is that to try to control this vayu eva to duskadam is impossible, like controlling the blowing wind, tornado or hurricane, it's impossible. So what to do? Krishna says you got to be a yogi. He says right in that chapter, become a yogi. So he relieves Arjuna's anxiety and ours at the end of the chapter. He says, the best yogi is one who's fixed his mind on me, is always thinking of me with great faith in the heart, worshipping me, bhajate bhakti. In other words, by accepting the process of devotional service, which means to develop attraction for Krishna and to fix the mind on him through the very feasible process of chanting and hearing, chiefly, as well as all the other things we have, such as the deity worship, very important, all the other services, then one can achieve as much or more as the dhyana yogis. So the very next verse, first verse of the 7th chapter, what does he say? Maya sakta manaparta yogam yunjan manasha. Now here we're talking about attachment. Now I'm going to explain how you can very practically get your mind attached to me. Maya sakta manam yogam yunjan vana asangsayang samagram mam yata gyasati tachunu. And Manashraya, Prabhupada says, has two meanings: taking shelter of me or taking shelter of my pure devotee who has taken shelter of me, which is essential. And then he begins shortly after saying how rare it is, Manusyanam Sahasreshu, to achieve this devotion to me, absorption of me, realization of me. But then he starts describing the material energy. In other words, he begins where we live. We live amongst the earth, water, fire, air, ether. We just don't think of it that way, right? It's all in varieties to attract our attention and attraction and repulsion. This is life. But when you step back a minute, this is sambandha gyan. So where did all this matter and air and gases and water, where did it come from? So he goes, oh, this is my energies, my lower energies. And you, Arjuna, and all the other living entities, they're my para prakriti. So how is that going to help us remember Krishna? Well, when you experience the interactions of your consciousness through the senses with this matter, such as water, rasoham apsakonteya, then you understand that's me, because it's my energy. And we think of it all the time. You see somebody's coat lying there, oh, that's Vijay's coat. He must be nearby, maybe I should take it. You're reminded of him. Anything related to a person, just like cars. People, Prabhupada talks about, we should take care of the body, feed it and everything, but don't get too exaggerated with taking care of it. What it needs, and because it's like a car you use to serve Krishna. You need your car to go somewhere. But don't spend all day, polishing the car. That's Maya. That's illusion. And it reminds me, every time I hear Prabhupada say that, he says it on this one lecture, several lectures, I think of my childhood, because I actually had one of my friend's fathers, or uncles, I forget. He was doing that. Whenever I saw him, I always saw him out in the garage area polishing that car. He would spend all day, not just Sundays. I mean, he was obsessed with that car. And it was quite nice. It was so shiny, beautifully. So, but when you apply it, isn't that what people do with the body? You pamper it so much, I'm a little fat. Oh my God, what's going to happen? And absorption in the bodily concept of life, and you build whole philosophies on it. All this racism up in everyone's mind, and the bodily concept of life. They've fallen prey to Maya's trick. To be absorbed in the externals and identify yourself with the body. That means you're your body and you're your body. Oh, you have a different color, therefore it's complete ignorance. So Krishna is teaching us in that 7th chapter how, by seeing Krishna in the interactions of our senses with the sense objects, he covers the fragrance, he covers the sight, the light of the sun and the moon, taste of water, even sex life, if it's religious, that's me, dharma varuddho buddheshu. So that's one practical way. But that's like subordinate, that we should understand that and be conscious of Krishna and all these things. But the chanting of the holy name cuts through the whole thing. And it purifies our mind so that this meditation is just one more way of remembering our beloved Krishna. If you're actually working for his benefit, and you're remembering him in all the attractive ways we have, chanting the name, then that will come naturally. You'll see Krishna everywhere, because it's all his energy. Everything reminds you of Krishna. Can you imagine how wonderful that would be? We come to the temple. People come to the temple because it's a way to become absorbed in seeing Krishna. And we're meant to think and understand that's Krishna. It's not a statue. There's Krishna standing there. So I always point out, you evidence or you evince that mentality, that understanding, when you're really strict and you don't come late. You imagine I said, Krishna himself is going to be on the altar. Oh, really? He's going to be there with Radharani? Okay. But I have something to do at 4:25. Maybe I'll come at 4:45. Who's going to do that? We'd be there at 3 a.m, waiting for Krishna. The point is that it means that we're not really believing that Krishna's there. Prabhupada's coming. I'm telling you, there's so many nice now videos and pictures of times when Prabhupada would come to a temple, and you see, everyone's, packed in the temple, everybody's shaved up, right? I mean, they may not have shaved up for 2 months, but Prabhupada's coming. Okay, let me shave up. They would paint the temples sometimes, and sometimes you could always tell Prabhupada's coming because it's fresh paint. It smells, because Prabhupada himself is coming. But we're all supposed to see that, understand Prabhupada is always with us. That's the whole idea of the Vyasa-san and the Murtis, to feel Prabhupada's presence there. So that's what Krishna consciousness means, is to spiritualize your whole life. So many times I'm reading, because I'm checking these books all the time and hearing lectures, and Prabhupada is saying again and again, ultimately, in the final analysis, there's no material energy. Everything is spiritual because it's all related to Krishna. And he's describing how he himself and other Mahabhagavats see the world. They see Krishna in everything. So where there anything material? Of course you deal with it in such a way that you engage in a Krishna service. But seeing that way is a kind of engaging everything in Krishna service, by engaging it as a reminder of Krishna. So these prachetas, they've just received this wonderful meditative song, or a series of verses, mantras, and they're going to chant for 10,000 years. It's just inconceivable, how to do that, become absorbed. How could you do that? Only by, even our own chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. You hear how Haridas Thakur Prabhupada said in the previous read, he chanted it 100,000 times. Well, you chant 100,000 names. That's 192 rounds every day. That's pretty hard to fathom how you could do that. I once figured out, how can I fit in 64 rounds in a day? With the whole morning program, So maybe you can do it if you get up at 1 in the morning, is it? Or 1:30? 1:50? But if you do 5-minute rounds, that's 5 hours and 20 minutes. Well, how are you going to squeeze 5 hours and 20 minutes of chanting, if you do the whole morning program? It's pretty hard. Yeah, if you get up at, 2:30, you start chanting at 3, and you just chant, then by 8:20, you've chanted your 64 rounds. But Baba didn't set up like that. Now, if you chant 5-minute rounds. I once used to measure them. It's not easy to chant 5-minute rounds. So the point is that, we're struggling with our rounds to chant our 16 rounds, and we should chant them. But you can imagine how easy it would be, how much easier if every syllable of every name that you chanted was just pure nectar and you tasted it, like Rupa Goswami tasted. Tunde Tandavanirati. How much nectar of this word, this name Krishna produced? I can't, if I chant, I want to have 1,000 million mouths. I'm tasting that. But that taste is there. We just can't taste it now. That's the lesson of the Upanishadamrita. A very important verse, Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya. Even though it's Sita, means it's tasty and very sweet, the holy name, form, qualities, pastimes of Krishna. Charitadi means his activities, etc. Those 4 things. Name, form, qualities, pastime. Still, because our tongues are covered by the bile of ignorance, in other words, we're still so conditioned, we don't taste it as sweet. Sometimes you can relish kirtan and you can get into it, but for the most part, it's an austerity. We're chanting and we're bringing the mind back. But he says, that if we carefully follow and chant every day, that gradually the disease of ignorance and modes of nature is destroyed at the root, and everything about Krishna, beginning with his name, regains its natural sweetness and taste. We have to remember that our natural state is to be full of bliss all the time, moment by moment, for eternity. And here we are sitting in these material bodies which are dragging us down and conditioning, and we're, I'm bored. What's there to do? Let's do some, let's smoke something, whatever. It's a tragedy for the soul to be in that condition. And just by practicing Krishna consciousness and exposed to this movement, studying the philosophy, it opens up the reality that we've been in a diseased condition for millions of years, millions of births. And now is the chance to get cured of the disease permanently and regain our natural state. That faith has to be there. Then all kinds of austerities, you say, well, okay, it's worth it, because at the end of the whole thing, we're not into eternal austerities. Austerities are like taking a shower, Okay, it's time for a shower, cold shower. Oh my God. Big deal in SanDiego. I remember my first cold shower. I didn't tell you this story. He's new. Some of you have heard it. So I just joined the ashram, and there's all kinds of austerities. Okay, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then it's time for the morning program, my first day. And if I remember, there's no hot water. It's March in New York. It's pretty cold still, And so it's cold shower out the door, because you got to take a shower. So I said, okay, this is it. And we're lining up. There was a line. Finally came my turn. And I thought, I got this. I got this heating breath that I learned in Hatha Yoga. Really works. And so I stepped into the shower, turned it on, and practiced my heating breath. I swear, it was really easy. Yeah. And like a 13-second shower, boom, I was out, I did it. I'm a yogi, like that. But it's a mental thing. It's mostly a mental thing, just like fasting on Ekadashi. You remember Brijbasi? We had this wonderful devotee from South Africa, black body devotee, very Pakka, he was educated, in college and everything, came. And he was the head Brajari for how many years? 5, 6 years. Anyway, it was wonderful. And so we were discussing, somehow Ekadashi came up. It was Ekadashi. And he, said, I've been doing Nirjal. He wasn't bragging or anything. We just thinking. So, he's a second generation. I'm a Prabhupada disciple. I should try to do Nirjal. That was my mentality. So I started doing Nirjal Ekadashi, which is a little difficult at first. But after a while, it was just what I did, It became like, well, there's no question of drinking anything. I stopped when I went to Bombay one year. It was 2015. And it was hot. It was October, but it was hot. And I did Nirjal, and I was sweating, and I got dehydrated, and I was like fainting and everything. I said, I can't do this anymore. On the plea of old age, so now I just drink jal. I drink some water. But the thing is, oh my God, is it a half-day fast? Or is it fasting? There's this whole debate whether Ram is fast till evening or fast till noon. They gave it to the Shastra Advisory Committee to research, because in India, isn't it Ram? Everyone fasts till noon because he appeared at noon. But Prabhupada on a morning walk, he was giving the fast times, and he said till evening. So that's what we put on the calendar. But I'm telling you, if it was the other way, there wouldn't be a big argument. If it was noon, no one was going to argue to fast till evening. But it was this big whole thing, whether it should be noon. I remember I was with Prabhupada; he fasted till noon. But it's a psychological thing. It's not that big a deal, the fast till noon, even the fast till evening. But similarly, the most important vrat and the most important austerity to do, chanting the holy name, that is our standing in water and chanting for 10,000 years. Our chanting 16 good rounds and progressing and becoming more and more absorbed in the holy name. And the rest of it is, not just chanting the holy name, but chanting about Krishna and hearing about him the rest of the time. We should also take this habit of life to become as good as the great saint simply by not talking unnecessarily with unwanted persons. Should either talk of Krishna or chant Hare Krishna undeviatingly. This is called Muni Vrat. The intelligence must be sharp and should always be acting in Krishna consciousness. So it's this verse, what is that? Uttishta jagata prapavada namodata chodasiddhara. The first part of the verse, it says, get up and wake up. Uttishta jagata, and understand the great treasure you have in the human life. Prapivaran. Varan means a benediction, Nabodhata. And then the second half talks about how it's razor's edge. If you take up this process of yoga, you have to be careful because one deviation, especially offenses, can create complete havoc in your devotional life. That everything we're doing, our ability to practice devotional service, whatever advancement we're making in terms of becoming detached from matter and attracted to Krishna, it's all coming from Krishna. It's not something, it's like we think, I'm building up my muscles, I'm doing it, see, I did it, That's bodily stuff. The spiritual matter is all based on Krishna's mercy and his blessings. So if we offend other devotees, and he withdraws the blessings, and you find that all the things you used to, relish in Krishna consciousness is just dry now. And I feel embarrassed about associating with devotees because they know that I offended it. In other words, that's the mad elephant. The little garden we're trying to grow in our heart, grow that creeper from the seed, watering, hearing, and chanting. When you are not careful about committing offenses. Now the greatest offense, of course, offending a pure devotee, but offending any devotee is disastrous. And then there's all this list we should know. That's why Prabhupada, worked so hard, provide us with the NOD, Nectar of Devotion, listing all these offenses to deity worship. Sitting with your back to the deity or pointing your legs at the deity. It means that if you see some guest come, you encourage them, especially pointing the legs at the deity. But there's like a whole list of them we should avoid. And so by knowing them, and actually trying to follow them, then you're on the safe side, Then your sadhana becomes more relishable. And so, this is what Prabhupada has given us. You have to know it first. That's why there's this nice book on etiquette, I think, that we have. It was compiled, it was mentioned, Bhakti True Swami was giving seminars on etiquette. dealings between devotees. You know, those, you know, if you follow those, that protects you from offending. You know, now offending unknowingly is still an offense. It's not healthy. But why should we offend at all? You know, in other words, to be conscious. Krishna conscious means to be conscious. There was this nice devotee named Rupanuga, who was one of the pioneers, 26 Second Avenue. He was in sannyasi for some time, and had a great. He was my first temple president, actually. Actually, when I was first becoming interested, he was the temple president there in Brooklyn. When I joined with Bali Mardan. But he coined this phrase, which I've never heard before. I don't hear it since, but it's really a good idea. The Krishna conscience, a Krishna conscience. You know, we're talking about Krishna consciousness, but Krishna conscience means that you're understanding, you know, all these injunctions and everything, and those form the guide for your behavior and your activity. That's an important, you know, concept. And even, you know, even without that phrase, the super soul, Prabhupada said at one point, is like the conscience. You know, you're feeling. If you don't, and people who are so demoniac, they bury that voice. They don't even hear it anymore. That's called a sociopath. You know, there's no sense of right or wrong. Even if you kill someone, you don't feel anything. You know, you can imagine what you got. Whereas devotees, you know, even contemplating killing somebody is a horrible thought. What to speak of, you know, even the insects. You know, so that's Krishna conscience. And we're cultivating that every day. That's why the class is so important. You know, we should, at all, you know, we should try to be there unless there's an absolute reason why we can't be in class. Otherwise, we're skating on thin ice. All right, let me read this verse again, the translation. My dear princes, in the form of a prayer, I have delineated the yoga system of chanting the holy name. All of you should take this important stotra within your minds and promise to keep it in order to become great sages. By acting silently like a great sage and by giving attention and reverence, you should practice this method. Oh, we have a question or a comment.
I'm just wondering, one of the verses you mentioned, this isn't so important, but one of the verses you mentioned toward the beginning, there was a term, mukta sangha. And I'm wondering,
that's Kaladoshi Nidarajan. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, do you know exactly what the rule is? Like, how, if you were to read Mukta Sangha, how do you know that it's saying freedom from Sangha attachment, mukta of Sangha, and not Sangha like attachment to liberation? Like, how do you know the order? Because sometimes it seems like the verse is the opposite order. It's kind of like Spanish. It's like it goes backwards.
Yes,
so how do you know?
Well,
I guess it's
kind of common sense would help in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know Sanskrit. You know, I mean, I never studied grammar, but I could try to find it. You know, if you remind me later in the day, if you text me, I can see if I can figure out why is Mukta Sangha not Sangha Mukta. Wouldn't make much sense, Sangha Mukta. But yeah, I wouldn't want to speculate on that. You know. But I do want. Oh, Balaram.
Yeah. You're talking about committing offenses like knowingly or unknowingly, and there's that account which you hear, which I'm sure everybody's heard, and I'm not exactly sure where it's from. I think maybe it's from the Bhakti Ratnakar, but it's that account where Rupa Goswami, he was, you know, absorbed in his, you know, internal service in, you know, Krishna's Leela, and then he was just meditating there, and then something apparently funny happened in the Leela, and then he laughed. And then while he was meditating that way, there was a deformed woman walking by.
Oh. Yeah, so he was a yogi.
Yeah, man walking by, deformed, and the man thought that Rupa Goswami was laughing at him. But he wasn't. I mean, he had his eyes closed. And then after the man, you know, left and he laughed and everything, and then his meditation broke.
Yeah.
And he was wondering, oh, why did my meditation break? And he just kind of, he was, confused. Yeah. So then he went to some devotee and he said, went to Sanatana Goswami and said, what do you advise I do? And the Sanatana Goswami said, you should hold a big feast and invite everybody, and whoever doesn't come, you should understand that you offended that person.
Oh.
So then they did that, and then that man didn't come, and he understood he offended that person. So then he went up to the man, and what happened.
'Cause he didn't know who it was. He
didn't know who it was. So then the man said, oh yeah, I thought you laughed at me. And Rupa goes, oh no, I didn't laugh. I was, meditating something, so please forgive me this and that. It was kind of unknowingly, but that was really unknowingly. They could close it in. So, how does that relate to us? Because, I suspect that people, devotees do a lot more than that, unknowingly, or knowing, or you know what I mean. So how in other words, how does that relate to us?
Well,
is it like, okay, well, I'm not as advanced as Rupa Goswami, so I kind of I got a lot of doors are open for me to do so many things that aren't
Well, that's a dangerous attitude. Take, those doors, you can open the door and fall down. I think that it speaks to how we should be sensitive to the effects of our activities, and even if we don't intend to do something, if something hurts someone or they feel hurt, we should try to apologize and say it was unintentional, please forgive me, because it can, if you don't, then that shows kind of callousness, and that itself is a natural offense. In other words, to be, well, yeah, I did this and they were hurt, but I didn't intend to. There, it doesn't matter. It definitely matters, especially if the person thinks you did it intentionally. Even if they don't, but you understand. Oh, this was a negative. Oh God, I'm sorry. I took all the sweet rice. I didn't know anyone else was coming. And then I'm sure the person. Oh, that's all right. No problem. But otherwise, there's if especially if they thought, well, you took 2-3 cups and and you knew that everyone didn't come on time, like that. In other words, they think there was some intentionality or callousness on your part. It's a delicate matter, and the safest position is always to take a humble position and apologize if you even unknowingly have caused some pain to someone. What's the cost? There's no cost, but the advantage is that harmony within the ashram and good feeling, which is worth $1 million. So it's, that's my policy anyway. I wanted to share one thing because I have a minute or two here. I found this incredible correction in the second canto. I was going through, and some of you may know this verse, Jnanam yad uppatindavritti gunormi chakram. Ring a bell? Maybe not. It's near it comes a few verses after akama sarvakamova, which is a famous verse, whether one is full of all kama or has no lusty desires or wants mukti or has still you should practice intense devotional service to Krishna. That's, after a whole laundry list of, things. You worship this one if you want a beautiful body, worship Indra, you get a strong body and strong sex life. You want a beautiful wife, worship Uma. There's like 30 or 4. So, and then after this, but whether you want everything or want nothing or want mukti, you should worship Krishna, Supreme Person. So this is a few verses after. So what we have here is this. This is the translation as we've had it for 50 years. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who would fail to be attracted? Now, I was reading this passage and I came across this verse and I noticed the Sanskrit, Harikatasu ratim nakurya. Who could fail to be attracted to Harikatasu, to Krishna Katha? But that's not in the translation. So I said, how did that happen? So I looked at the original one that Prabhupada typed. We have the second canto. There's no question about it. And it didn't say transcendental knowledge, it said transcendental topics. Transcendental topics in relation with this Supreme are topics that produce the complete suspension of the waves of whirlpool. Such topics are self-satisfying due to their being free from material attachment and being transcendental. They are approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted to those topics of Krishna Katha. You see the difference? Important. And then, you think, well, what does the purport say? Because what's amazing, this manuscript was retyped by Hayagriva. And from that retyped manuscript, that's what he edited, And that retyped manuscript has the whole thing with transcendental knowledge. Now this isn't just a typo, or missing a line or something. Somebody got in here, and it couldn't have been just him. Why did that change? And I was wondering that maybe Prabhupada changed it. But in the middle of this purport, he says exactly that thing. He says, Kaivalya Panta, the means of attainment. This Kaivalya Panta begins from Shravana, or hearing those topics that relate to the personality of Godhead. And the natural consequence of hearing such Harikatha is attainment of transcendental knowledge. Boom, QED. So this is, it suddenly becomes real, and the purport is fantastic. So I just wanted to share with you that discovery. All glories to Prabhupada.